Welcome to Beyond Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Petralis, and I'm so excited for today's episode. I'm going to be covering two sports that I haven't covered on this podcast yet. So I'm really, really excited to be able to do so. And I think we have a phenomenal coach on, a coach that has actually a lot of accolades, has been doing it for a long time. The head cheerleading coach at Charlestown High School for the past 9 years, and previously as well, the spring track coach for 8 years up until 2019. Was Boston Men's City League champions in track in 2019. And I know also has two Boston City League cheerleading championships as well. So a pretty well-rounded guest and someone who obviously, has done a tremendous job in his career thus far. So ladies and gentlemen, from Charlestown High School, David Lopes.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and I always have it when people watch it on the screen with just me on it.
Yep.
But I just love your energy so much. I was like, I want people to see you right from jump.
Good,
So
good.
it was pretty cool.
You forgot Coach of the Year, two-time Coach of the Year.
Okay. Oh, that's right. In 2019, track and cheerleading.
So
Coach
in one school year, I was Coach of the Year in the fall and in the spring, which felt phenomenal.
Which is unbelievable when you really think about it. It's like 2 of the 3 seasons you were named Coach of the Year in two different realms. So pretty cool.
Yeah, love it.
So I got to ask you, obviously you're a pretty well-rounded coach, both in cheering and track. I mean, how did you get how'd you get started in coaching and saying, hey, this is the direction that I want to go? Did you have previous experience with cheerleading or track, or is it something you picked up being a teacher at Charlestown High School?
Well, definitely no prior experience with cheerleading, except I always was like a dancer. I danced in high school. I danced on the dance team in college. Dance has always been like a passion of mine, as was like physical fitness and whatnot. And I actually, after graduating, got my group exercise license and like worked in a gym teaching hip hop dance classes and stuff like that. I was also a PE teacher. And so that just got me into kind of being a gym teacher, kind of ultimately led to getting into sports. And I did track all through high school and college. So I was very knowledgeable about track. So when that position opened up, that was like an easy slide into that one.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with cheering, and I really like that you added that PE part, because obviously you're in the school and you're seeing the most athletic kids, or kids that might not be playing a certain sport during a season or just never played it before. You're like, wow, you'd be pretty good. So in developing a cheer team, I mean, what does it look like for you as far as building a squad? I mean, what goes into, say, just what you're looking for? I know in basketball you have a bench of a certain amount of people in high school you play. I mean, how does that look in the cheering world as far as, what you have and how you develop it?
I like to keep a squad between, the smallest we've had is, I think we had 12. The biggest I've carried is 24. I like the 15 to 20 range. And even I actually had an info meeting the other day at school for this upcoming season. And so many young people are just so nervous. I've never cheered before. I've never danced before. I've never done this. I've never done that. And I tell them, you don't need any experience. Like, you just, like, honestly, just bring energy and have like a passion for dancing, and like, just be you. Like, show me what you got. Show me what you're working with. So I look for energy. I mean, it doesn't hurt if you can tumble, and it doesn't hurt if you're like strong. It doesn't hurt if you're very petite, because it means you'll go up higher. But like, I take all types of body sizes, shapes, backgrounds, boys, girls, everything and anything in between.
Yeah, and that's great, because obviously you're developing a program, and you're trying to say to yourself, and this must be really hard, because I couldn't imagine this in the football world where I have a lot of experience, but like some years you have a short bench or a short amount of girls, and some years you have a lot more. So going into an off season for you, how are you maybe educating yourself? I know you do track, so obviously you have to focus on that, but how do you maybe go about educating yourself in the cheer world from year to year?
Yeah, so winters, as soon as track is done, that like December competition is over, I like to take that winter, and I'll probably take a month around the holiday to like veg, but then come January, I'll like, honestly, like YouTube, movies, there's lots of like online coaching seminars and programs that you could take, because cheerleading is one of the most dangerous sports. Like, you can't just go there and be like, hey, throw that girl up in the air. There's a proper way to do everything from lifting to tumbling to holding to catching. because the last thing you want is an injury on your squad. So I will try and spend time just learning new like styles of coaching, how to coach and stunts and things of the sort. Because it's the more knowledgeable I am, the better the squad will be.
That's great. And then obviously going into the season, I'm just really curious about this because again, cheerleading, when I was a football coach and head football coach, were kind of the unsung heroes in our program. I felt like they did a lot for our guys and, they were part of it both on the field cheering, no matter what the weather is or where you're going, whether it's freezing, raining, sunny out, they're there for you. They're your number one fan. So, how do you go into a season saying, okay, this is the squad I have, and then kind of two things like developing a routine. And then how do you go about picking your music? Like, I'm really always curious about that. Is it more the trendy now, or is it kind of a mix of all generations? I'm just really curious as a fan.
In regards to the music, I do it. I do it all. If it was up to the squad to pick the music, it would probably be inappropriate and it would be WAP and it would not be what a cheerleading routine is. However, for like the home football games, for like pep rally, I know kind of what they like. So I'll find kind of a cheerleading remix of like something by like Cardi B or Doja Cat or just something that they're going to like. I did get in trouble one time because I let the squad pick the song and they did Anaconda at the pep rally. And there was this whole floor routine, very inappropriate. I did get spoken to, and for the rest of the year, the principal did have to clear the rest of the music that we performed. But aside from that, there's like really there's awesome websites to find very awesome like remixes. And honestly, the squad will listen. The other day I was like, this is the music that we're doing for this year's competition. And they were all about it. They were so into it. And it actually ends with MC Hammer's You Can't Touch This, which literally came up before any of them were born. And they were like, this is an amazing ending. So I'm so excited for it.
That is cool. That is cool. And how much you have them listening to it? Maybe just like when you're away from chill. I mean, are you telling them, listen to the song, listen?
Oh yeah. I have like a shared Google Doc that has slides of a breakdown of all of the choreography and the chants, and then a slide with the music. And please listen to the music like as much as you can, because the more you hear it and you're doing the dance in your head, and it's so funny because you'll see the students in the hallway like listening to music, and I'll just be like walking down the hallway like they're listening to it because they're like doing the moves as they're walking to class, and I'm like, yes, they're trying, they want to know, so it makes me happy.
Now, do you bench? Like, and what I mean by that is like you're saying you're sharing all the routines and step by step on how to do it. If there's a girl out there who's not really knowing her stunts or understanding what she's doing and maybe risk injuring somebody by not knowing the do you bench girls in your team?
I will. I mean, it's obviously not a punishment, but if a girl just doesn't have it, or boy doesn't have it, I will be like, listen, I don't want to embarrass you. I don't want to embarrass the squad. Clearly, like, you just haven't gotten it yet. So like, how about you sit out this game and we'll focus on it next week, and hopefully you'll be ready by next week. Like, I don't want to make anyone feel stupid or silly. So I do my best to be supportive. It does hurt though, because obviously before a game in your mind, like I set up like, okay, I have this many on the squad. I set up my formations. If you have one person missing from that formation, you now have to reorganize everything so it looks neat and organized. And if that person was supposed to be in this stunt, now that stunt can't go. So it's the last minute refiguring drives me insane.
I heard you give that big breath of like, I totally get it. Like, I totally get it when you walk in the game day thinking you have something, or a kid pulls up and gets injured, or doesn't show up to school, or, something, you're like, what, and now all day long you're trying to, like, while doing your regular job, like, you're like, oh my God, this is a problem I need to fix immediately. And how can I do it?
And the one thing that I think youngsters need to learn nowadays, even adults, I have friends that need to learn better communication. It's like if you can't be there and you're not going to be there, just send me a text like the morning of, like, give me time to figure it out. Because there have been times where like we're getting on the bus to go to a school, and I'm like, where's so and so? Like, she actually went out of town for the weekend. I'm like, what? Like,
Right.
was she not going to tell me? Like, and like on the bus ride to the other school, I'm trying to like figure things out. Oh, those are the lows of cheerleading when you have to do all of that stuff.
Yeah, and obviously, let's just kind of get into it. I mean, you're a two-time champ in the Boston City League. So, talk about the Boston City League a little bit as a whole, maybe, and, some of the stronger schools or schools that you compete against year after year that, you guys are battling with.
There are a lot of good schools. O'Brien is always really tough. Their coach is a great coach, Lance, and he always comes strong. He has tumblers. Their stunts are always great. Latin Academy, another very, very solid school. A lot of the schools have Madison Park. They're great at dance when it comes down to just like the dancing portion of stuff. Like they know how to get down, get funky, and dance. Brighton, Eastie, they have good stunts, good flyers. I mean, any year, any squad could honestly win it all. And sometimes you could have the best routine, and just one little mistake on that one day could make you not a champion.
Yeah, and that's so tough. I can't imagine like the margin of error must be so tiny, especially when you have a couple really good schools that are neck and neck as far as points go.
Yep. And I remember because we usually get score sheets after competition. And I remember one competition, it was the note from the judge was, please tell your girls not to chew gum. And I was like, someone had gum? Who was chewing gum during the what? And I went into the room and I was like, someone had gum. And I went back, I watched it. I still to this day don't know who it was because I've watched the video and over again, and I don't know who was chewing the gum. But even little things like that hey, that's a 5-point deduction.
No one's admitting that one. No one's admitting that one.
Because as nice as the guy I am, I will go off a handle for silly things that better. Not to wear jewelry. Not to chew gum. Like there's certain things that everyone knows.
All right. So talking about your style a little bit and what, expect of your program. I mean, if I were to come and show up to a practice one day, what does it look like for you as far as, building a practice and really getting a routine ready for whether it's a game or a competition that you have down the road?
Practices are usually, I try and keep it to 2 hours a day, 2:30 to 4:30, with game days usually being on Fridays. And I'm a big fan of warming up the kids, not so much, or the students, not so much. 2 laps around the track, and I will lead a group stretch. If I have to attend to something else, the captains will lead the group stretch for a good 10, 15 minutes. And then I like to do a little strength conditioning. And again, I get all of it, planks, push-ups, squats. Why do we have to do this? Let's just dance. And I'm like, no, you have to be strong. If the stronger you are, the easier it's going to be for you to lift someone. If the tighter your core is, the easier it is to be standing on top of a pyramid, nice and stiff. So I love to do the stretching and conditioning. That's a huge component of my practices. And then usually one day will be kind of the dance portion. One day will be stunting. One day will be jumps. One day will be tumbling. What's kind of interesting is, in Charlestown, we have a football team. We can say that. And learning the sidelines is very important. I take sidelines very seriously, whereas the girls like to focus on doing just the competition sort of stuff. I found out on Friday of this week that the Charlestown football team folded. Oh. So now we don't have games to cheer for anymore, which is such a bummer because I know some of the squad does definitely look forward to that. So we'll save time now because we won't have to learn sideline cheers and just spend more time focusing on getting better prepared for our competition.
Yeah, I mean, that's sad. And that is sad first, obviously, for the program, but, also for the fact that, I mean, a lot of these girls do enjoy that Friday night atmosphere of friends and family in the stands, and everyone's watching the football game and performing in front of both the student body and your family. I mean, that is an honor,
What good, bad, or whatever, Friday night game nights at the school, regardless of who you're playing, whether you win or lose, teachers are there, parents are there. It's the thing to do in high school on a Friday night, and to not have that anymore, like, it makes me sad, and I know it makes the students sad as well.
Yeah.
It's sad to see sports kind of deteriorate and go away.
Well, yeah, especially with COVID too, maybe a little bit having an effect on that as well. And maybe that's happening in a lot more places in different sports, and we're not realizing it yet until we start getting through the school year itself. So you mentioned something really cool that I kind of want to just highlight a little bit and ask. I mean, you mentioned that you do the warm up with them and you kind of lead the stretches. I mean, is it safe to say that in your program that your team takes on your personality, or the team takes on your personality in the sense of who you are, having high energy, precision, things like that? Is that what you want your program to be, as far as maybe its attitude towards cheerleading?
I definitely think so. I tend to have a big personality, and I push my girls to kind of get out of their comfort zone and be leaders, and always do the right thing and be vocal, and like, even when I'm not there, people will step up and push each other to be better cheerleaders. I'm all about just like support and like lifting people up. I'm never one to tear people down, and I think I try, and most of the squad usually will take away that for me.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Now, obviously getting through a season, I mean, it's a grind. I mean, you're middle of August really till Thanksgiving Day, because you go typically where the football team goes, and that's till Thanksgiving Day. So that is
Thanksgiving, our
season.
second competition is in December. We go till December, like the second week in December.
Yeah, so even more so. So you're going even an extra week to 2 weeks
Oh,
in your
yep.
season. So it is a grind. So when that ends for you, and obviously you coach spring track, you were the head coach for 8 years. I mean, how much time you taking off? I know you mentioned you veg for like a month, but how
Yes.
much time are you taking off before really focusing in on track and getting ready for that?
On Honestly, not a lot. The month of vegging is probably pretty much it, because the indoor track coach for all those years, the indoor head track coach was my assistant outdoor coach. So we have a good working relationship, and my focus was like the jumps, high jump, long jump, triple jump, some of the throwing events, where his strengths were all the running. So he would always be like, "Hey, Lopes, would you mind coming to the Reggie Lewis Center and helping out with the jumps and stuff?" So even in that indoor season, I'm volunteering as a coach. I probably go 2 to 3 days a week to the indoor track practices and meets and help the squad. Because ultimately, helping them in the winter time will help the outdoor track team. So I don't give myself too much of a break. And for years, honestly, for 4 years, there wasn't a lot for the squad to do. So I actually had a cheerleading club that cheered for the basketball games, which was honestly wicked fun.
Yeah, see, that's awesome. So it's able to bring it into another sport. And again, it's probably a different type of cheering, in a sense that I've always felt like winter, it's kind of more like in place sequence kind thing, where outdoor, it's a little bit more athleticism and throwing up
Yep.
and all that. So it's two complete different styles, which I think is also kind of really cool.
And I hope to one day bring it back. I mean, I stopped because I got into a master's program and had all these other things going on. So I stopped it. And it's kind of a bummer that it's not a recognized BPS sport. I did it for free. I did it just to like help out. Not that I like need money to do it, but like I would volunteer and do it again, just because it gives the students something to do. And it also will make them better cheerleaders in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think it's something really important that you said there. It's like, this isn't your full-time job. I mean, when I talk to most coaches here, I mean, this is their part-time gig that they do on top of their job. And you being a school teacher, and I know you work in SPED. So I also understand that, you're very involved in the school as well, and developing, curriculum and adjusting curriculum for kids. And it's not easy. It's not
Nope.
easy.
But I love it.
Um, yeah, you do. And you put in, like you said, like those, I mean, if you got paid for every hour that you worked in those two jobs, I mean, you'd be really rich, and
Yep.
you don't, unfortunately.
Like a lot of this summer I spent trying to find the perfect song for a competition. I had to create a new choreographed routine. So I spent hours on hours, like figuring out a routine, and that's outside of work time. So I spend my summer, my own free time, creating what I think is going to be a masterpiece. To now just work on it for the next oh my God, November's right around the corner, for the next couple months.
Yeah, so it's tough, and obviously now there's even a little bit of change in plans as far as now how you're going to go keeping them engaged and so on and so forth over that period of time as well.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to jump in now to track. So we kind of went over that aspect of your fall life and family. Now we're going to jump into your spring life and family here in spring track. And I know in 2019 you won a league championship and you were coach of the year in both sports, right? So
Yep.
you definitely had a pretty successful last year of coaching track. And it was before COVID, so it was probably like, wow,
Yeah.
I'm glad I left at the right time,
Yeah.
So
I left at a high note.
yeah, absolutely. So talk about, how much cross recruiting you're doing as far as getting people to play or do track as far as athletes go in all the sports. Being involved in the school, the students, like we said before, and who should be playing what or who should be doing what. So how do you go about getting other athletes from other sports to really come and join spring track?
Yeah, numbers for track for at least at Charlestown, have always tended to be like kind of low. So it's hard. And though honestly, you ask anyone, you're like, hey, you thought about doing track? I don't like to run. And that's the answer you will get 90% of the time. And I'm like, you don't have to run. Like, there's so much more to track than just running. There's the throwing events, there's the jumping events, there's long distance, there's the sprints. So it is, I did find it very hard to recruit, but thankfully I have, so the head indoor coach was the assistant football coach. So he always grabbed a lot of his football players to come do some of the throwing events and whatnot. Yeah. And when I was a PE teacher at Charlestown, I shared my office with the other gym teacher, who at that time was the head basketball coach. So I was like, hey, Cardoso, can I get some of your boys to do track? And we had, from the basketball team, I think we had a city champion high jumper and a city champion long jumper. And I honestly was like, okay, I know you don't want to do track. I know you have a job. I was like, just come to practice once a week, come to the meets, and I will leave you alone. And it worked. And for the females, I tell my cheerleaders, you need to stay in shape. And I kind of tell them, if you do track, I will guarantee you a spot on the fall squad. Probably don't know if I should do that or not, but I do it, and they come out for track. So it works.
Yeah, you're getting athletes. The hardest thing being a head coach was trying to convince other kids that are like, oh, I'm a hockey player. Oh, I'm a baseball player. Oh, I'm only a lacrosse player. And it's just you can play other sports and be competitive and keep your mind, always kind of in situations so you get better and better as a leader in every sport. There's so much more to developing your game a little bit. So getting them to play another sport and getting them to compete, like you said, all of a sudden you get a few basketball kids and now they're winning league championships on something they've never, ever thought they would ever do in their lives, So it is also eye-opening as far as being an athlete and being like, wow, I'm an athlete. I could be pretty good at a lot of different things.
And we do have an amazing athletic director at Charlestown. Her name's Paige, and she brings the coaches together, and she strongly encourages multi-season athletes. She will do some of the recruiting for us, and she coaches the girls soccer team as well. And she'll be like, hey, I have this girl who I think would be awesome at the javelin, I'm going to send her to you. So she, as our athletic director, will do some of that moving around and getting students to do other sports, because unfortunately there's not a lot of opportunities for sports in each season. You just mentioned lacrosse, we don't have lacrosse. In the spring there's baseball, softball, and track. I think that's it.
Yeah, that's what I had in high school. That was it. Yeah.
We had so much, we had tennis, we had ice hockey, we had cross country. There was a lot more opportunities to do sports when I was growing up. So and sports was so important to me growing up. So I think it's very important for these students to have those kinds of opportunities.
Absolutely. And in developing that, that track, team, obviously, like you said, you're getting people from other sports, but then how are you putting it all together? How are you assessing, this kid should be a high jumper. This kid should be a triple jumper. This kid should be a sprinter. This kid should be a 2 miler. I mean, how do you then go about, I mean, some kids know what they want to do and you're looking, but how do you maybe find those diamonds in the rough that you're like, yeah, you actually be pretty good at this event?
Let me tell you, every kid thinks they know what they want to do. Every student thinks that they are going to be the best sprinter in the world. That's all anyone wants to do. Everyone wants to do the 100. That's about it. So those first 2 weeks of the season, like the preseason, are so exhausting because like you're limited. Like you can only enter 3 students in the 100, 3 students per event. When everyone, oh, that's all I want to run. That's the 400. That's too much running, and you have to just like work with them, talk with them, like figure it out. And like ultimately they realize what they will excel at. But there are challenges where you have students that come out because track is a non-cut sport. And like I've definitely had students that are not necessarily the most athletic people, and like they'll try this and not be good at it. They'll try this, not be really good at that. They want to try this, they won't be good at that. So it takes time to really just figure out where they fit in. But I've always done my darndest to figure out where every student fits in and feel comfortable.
And that's really important. That's really important. Sorry.
Because the last thing you want to do is put a student in something where they're going to feel embarrassed or fail. Like you don't want to do the 400 and be like 10 seconds like in last place. If they're an event where they can do moderately well, that's going to be a win for them.
That's great. And that's what's hard. I mean, again, coaching that many different athletes, both boys and girls, and trying to see where they all fit can be really, really difficult. So I guess my question to you is, what event, I know as a coach, like there are some huge strengths that I have and some weaknesses I have. What event are you like, these are the events I'm really good at coaching at? And what are some events that you're like, I depend on maybe my assistant coach to be a little bit better at that event than me?
I excelled like high school, college. I was an amazing triple jumper and long jumper. Those are my jam. So that's what I excel at in coaching now is the long jump and triple jump. I've actually had the last few years top 3 city champions in long jump and triple jump for a very, very long time. And what I am not like the blocks, when I ran, I was a 400 runner, so I've never even touched a block. I'm not a block person. So the sprints are not my jam, but thankfully I always had like an amazing assistant coach who he did like the sprints, the blocks. He also did the hurdles. So our setup was it was really nice. We had a volunteer coach and another like assistant coach. So there was a kind of 3 to 4 of us that were always hands-on working with the boys and the girls and figuring everything out.
That's great. And just the last question I have for you about, just spring track a little bit before I jump into more stylistic things is, what in 2019 made you say like, you know what, this is my last year of coaching this a little bit. And, I think I'm going to kind of give this up.
I stopped. It's a great question. And I stopped loving it. Like, I love the kids. The kids are great, and I enjoy being with them. But I remember like showing up at the meets and the practices and just being so fired up and like being so excited and like having all the feels about it, and even just winning that 2019 like for the men, the championship just felt so good. And then when I was done, I was like, you know what? This is a great way to finish my track coaching. Like, and I knew my assistant coach would end up being the head coach, so I was leaving it in great hands. If I didn't know that he was going to take it over, I probably wouldn't have stepped down. But Coach Dean is such an amazing guy, and I'll probably still continue to help him out. So the students are in great hands, but the passion for it just wasn't there anymore. And I know, like, moving forward, I'm 43. I know I don't look it, but I am. Like, there's like, I want a kid. There's things that I want, And so some things are going to have to fall off. And track happens to be one of them. I'm
Yeah,
going
I
to
mean,
hold on to cheerleading though as long as I can.
yeah, I totally get it. It adds up. And I think the biggest thing that people don't realize that you kind of talked about is it's time. It's a lot of time in season, but you're saying you're not really taking that much time off in your off season anyways. You're like,
Oh,
there's not much of a break. So you are going a lot longer and doing a lot more that people don't realize. And I think after a while, yeah, when things start changing in your life, maybe it's prioritizing a little bit. And as much as you love something and it means a lot to you, you also understand for yourself and your mental health and everything else that it might be a thing that you just have to kind of give up for right now. So I think you said it very well, and I get it. I really, really do.
it was hard. It was not an easy decision to make. Um, but I knew they would be in good hands, and it was time. It was
Yeah.
just time. It was just hard to admit, but it was time.
And you avoided COVID.
But I did.
You
Oh,
avoid it because so many coaches I've had on here and listening to their stories of, how they had to coach through COVID and ways that they had to change and innovate and be different. And, on top of your schedule changing every day and circumstances changing every day, I couldn't imagine. So maybe you were there, weren't there at the right time.
seriously, facts.
So one really cool thing is being an educator at Charlestown High School, but also being a coach and really just being an influence in the kids in both in the classroom as well as out of school. I mean, talk about that role and how important that is for you as an educator and a coach to put kids in the right path and steer them in the right direction.
I mean, I feel very blessed because I love my job. Like I wake up, I'm like happy. I'm like I get to go to work and be with all the kids, um, and just helping students like discover the potential that they have and getting them to work outside of their comfort zone and kind of reach these like little milestones. Um, like not only is it personally rewarding for me, but when the kids are like, I never thought I'd be able to do this, and like thank you because now I can do this because of you. Like that stuff is great, especially in special education where I have students that are so down on themselves because of their disability and feel like they because of it won't be able to accomplish a lot of things in life. Um, so when they're able to do these things that they're like, I never thought I'd be able to do this kind of math. I never thought I'd be able to do X, Y, Z. And they can finally do it is so rewarding. And it like, that's what makes it worthwhile. That is what I love. Oh my God. And for my gen ed students, like, I know I don't have my cheerleaders in the classroom, but just like seeing them in the hallways, seeing them in school, and like I'll be like, hey, you need to be in class. And they're like, yes, okay, I got it. Like I feel like I'm the in school like pusher of like them to do better. Cause it's easy to kind of like skip class or kind of slack off, but I'm always there in school, walking around the halls. Where my unit is, I'm on the fourth floor, which is the upper school. So all of my juniors and seniors are in my hallway. And if I see them out, I'm like, shouldn't you be in class, young lady? And they're like, sorry, coach, we're going. And I will walk them to class. So it's good for them to have me there to also keep them in line because they have goals, they have dreams, and like I try and do my best to get them there.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. And I'm a fifth grade teacher myself, and I coach high school kids. And I take both those roles so seriously, and being committed to being on time and being prepared for them as I expect them to be prepared for me. It takes a lot of work, and so I understand what goes into it as an educator as well to want what's best for them in both worlds. And sometimes maybe as a coach, have to make that tough decision about they're maybe doing something wrong in school and affecting them on their team. So it's a tough balance for sure.
Yeah.
So the last thing I'll just ask you, and I ask a lot of coaches this because I just feel like it's such a good question and powerful question, is just what's your advice to young coaches out there? As far as talking about coaching from the sacrificing aspect and the behind the scenes stuff that they really won't know they're getting themselves into until they start sinking their teeth into it.
Ooh, that's a really good question.
Thank you.
I remember like starting out as like, because like I wanted to be the soccer coach, and then my athletic director was like, "Nope, how about you be the cheerleading coach?" And it took me. I finally said yes, and that first year with like having so little experience was like, and they're like, "We have a guy as a cheerleading coach. This is weird." Um, like presented so many challenges. Um, to be honest, for those first year or two, I leaned into my captains. I mean, they knew the squad better than I did. They knew the students. They knew kind of some of the routines. They knew the sideline cheers. My captains for those first two, I could name them all. Because that first year, 2 years, they were so helpful. Like they would pull me aside after a practice and be like, "Hey coach, like we saw that you did this, like what worked for us last year is like if you like do this instead." And I was like, "Oh, okay, oh, you know what, that makes sense, like thank you very much."
Yeah.
Like don't be like, yes, you're the adult, I'm the adult, you're the adult, and you're the one that's in charge, but like it's okay to give the students a voice, and it's okay to learn from them. Like so I mean, I got off my high horse and let my students, my captains, tell me like kind of what was working, what wasn't working, and I was open to that feedback. Whereas I feel like sometimes it's like, I'm the boss, I'm in charge, you will do what I say, which a lot of times doesn't really work.
Right. And truthfully, your captains are somewhat your voice to the team, right? Because they're not going to want to listen to your voice after a while. And not saying that that's the case, but sometimes it is, especially if you're not doing well or if you're being really tough on them. So having those captains to kind of back you up and having those captains to really help you, get that message across that you want to get across is really important. So I think that's great advice. I know I've always relied on my players to kind of bring a certain mood to practice or bring a certain vibe to practice that's needed, or someone to go a little hard on scout defense and tell these kids to toughen up a little bit. So
Yep.
so it's always a question I love to ask, because I think every head coach has great feedback for it. So
And
I
I
appreciate
honestly,
it.
I still talk to a handful of my captains, like even from like 6, 7, 8 years ago. Like my squad means a lot to me, like very, very much to me.
Yeah, and that's great to hear, and that's why you're on the show. So I thank you for allowing me, because this is the first time I've ever covered both of these sports on this show, and the strategy that goes in, the thought process. I mean, things that I kind of thought I knew, I really didn't. So this was really cool, and I appreciate you hopping on here. But we're gonna jump into our last segment, which is called the 2-minute drill, and this is how it works. Okay,
We
no
need a
pressure.
stretch. Am I good? Are we good?
Yeah. So listen, we just kind of fire some rapid fire questions at you. 1 or 2 word answers. If you want to explain something, go ahead. We're pretty lenient
Okay.
on it, but it's a fun segment. My coaches give me great feedback. Let me just grab my questions here
Okay. I'm
and
ready.
set the timer, and here we go. Team in your league that you compete against that's always tough, like you always feel like you're going neck and neck with.
O'Brien.
Okay. Song that still gets you kind of juiced up, like you always want it in your routine, or you might listen to it before a big competition yourself.
Till the World Ends by Britney Spears.
Okay. All right. Speaking of Britney Spears, I did get a question from a guest, a person that found that you were coming on as a guest. Should we be free in Britney or no? What's the deal?
100%, and I think it's going to happen.
I love it. All right, tough Patriots game today, but week 4, Brady versus Belichick. Who's winning the game?
Brady. I
Okay.
hate to say it, but Brady.
All right. 1 word to describe your coaching style.
Upbeat.
Okay. What would your players say?
Funny.
Okay. And last question. What's the number 1 song that you've probably used the most in all of your routines that you've ever done?
Oh crap. Oh, little. Nope. The other one, Nicki Minaj. Oh my God, it's not Starships. It's the She had two songs on the album. It was Starships and it was the other one, and I don't know what it's called, but it's that other song on that album that's not
Okay.
Starships.
I mean, I like Nicki Minaj, but I don't know the name of her song. So I was trying to help. I was like, let me think. But sorry, it was no help to you there.
You realize I'm not going to bed until I figure out what the song is. But I obviously won't keep you.
All right. Well, listen, you survived the 2-minute drill. And like I said, I just want to say thanks for coming on here. You were great. I loved your energy. Just even our pre-phone conversation that we had earlier in the week. I knew this was going to be a fun podcast and it did not disappoint. So thanks for coming on today.
Thank you. This was really, really fun. I'm glad to get cheerleading and track out there into the world. And for any cheerleading and track coaches out there, like, keep doing what you're doing. They're great sports. Your students love you. This was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much. And again, follow us on Instagram, and stay involved with the show because we've had past guests come on different food segments and things that we have coming up. We have past guests coming too, and we love to have you on.
I'm a cooker, so get me in a kitchen. I will do the damn thing. Don't you worry.
All right. Awesome. And yeah, we have a 1-year celebration coming up. So we'll keep in touch. I appreciate you coming on from Beyond Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Petrellis, David Lopes, Charlestown High School. Till next time.
Sounds good.